The other one that's at risk for me is the data analyst roles
Mm,
that are primarily pulling data.
yeah.
So in the past have worked with a ton of people where they really just kind of ask you what you want. Hey, what data do you need? What are your requirements? Again, the
Hmm.
whole like built to spec thing. And I'm going to make a report for you. And then they would produce a report or dashboard and go like, here it is. What do you think? Do you like it? Do you not? What do you want to change? So you're really just telling that person to do stuff for you, and they're like an order taker, a glorified,
Hmm.
highly paid order taker, right? That role I think is completely at risk, and I think that when we get to the on demand part, I'll share like flip reverse part of the coin, but um, with AI, you should be able to, given you have a good data set that's normalized and standardized, you should be able to just ask it to pull the data for you. And I think we're seeing that already. What do you think?
Yeah, 100% agree. I had this one on my most at risk also. I called it, hey, I wasn't sure what to call this bucket. Like in some of the companies I worked at, those roles were called analysts, and they actually sat on the data team and they worked with marketing ops, and in a lot of cases, a tiny marketing ops team. And so the analysts like owned the Looker, the BI tool, and they were the one just like, hey, what report do you need, a new dashboard? And oftentimes it was us asking to put this new report on their roadmap. And so I agree. I think that is getting easier for like non-technical, non-analysts to build. There's this whole like automated dashboard and performance tracking idea to this. We could probably even like include some type of attribution reporting and basic like ROI stuff in this. My gut says that like this is an easy one in a sense that it will maybe not fully go extinct, but change big time. Like this whole idea of reporting, I think it's already massively shifting out of the marketing ops department into the data team department.
Hmm.
I think like what you kind of called out, like the front end dashboard data viz part of, hey, do you need this report and I'll create it for you, is super easier already today. What's changing is NLP, natural language processing, allowing business users to interact with data, have conversations with like BI
Mm.
chatbots, having a whole experience without having to download any data. You don't need to be a SQL expert. You can ask plain questions and receive plain English charts and ask the AI to like help you.
Love it.
I have a client, a tiny little customer that I'm helping with. They're a big data company and they've invested in ThoughtSpot as um, they're like they have a really impressive search based interface with NLP that allows users to turn questions into a dashboard. I think they call it like
Oh, that's
Spotter.
awesome.
And I've played around with it and it's really impressive. It's not perfect. Like sometimes you're just like, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. But this whole thing of like someone coming to you and saying, like, hey, what do you need me to build for you today? That's being replaced with you interacting with a chatbot that sits on top of your data warehouse or your BI tool and asking it questions and being like, what were sales in the last 6 months? What was traffic in the last 6 months? Basically, like changing that whole category in a sense.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I completely agree with that one. And yeah, that natural language processing, I find that fascinating, and I think that my guess is we're getting really close already. I'm just speaking from like just from personal experience. I create diagrams on LinkedIn, and I have Chat GPT, and I'm just using sample data, but I have Chat GPT continually iterate on the visualizations. So I'll just say, can you like turn it into a horizontal chart instead?
Mm,
Can you add like different dimensions to it to like so I'm talking to ChatGPT to do that. I don't think we're very far away from, having companies like ThoughtSpot or others where you're actually just like continually just asking questions until it gets it right. All of this given you have the right data.
right.
So can't ignore
Yeah.
that one.
That's the beauty of this space being
Yeah.
like BI dashboard tools that ideally sit on top of your warehouse. Like there's a couple of them. Like I had a long stint earlier in my career at Clipfolio, which was a BI dashboard tool.
Yeah.
And initially, the vision was instead of sitting on top of the warehouse, we're going to connect all of your sources. And so it
Yeah.
basically just became like an API connector product that you could download data from GA and Facebook and product data, put it all in one spot, and then you could build visualizations on top. And there's other startups like Polymer doing this. I think the
Yeah.
future is when your BI tool sits on top of the warehouse, there's going to be a whole new category of tools that instead of buying a BI tool like a Looker and spending millions of dollars on that, our little startup can directly sit on top of your warehouse. And once we get to a stage where it
Yeah.
understands the tables and like we get to a good structure, you can have a conversation with a bot about what exists in a data warehouse. Marketers don't need to know the structure, the
Yeah.
table, the right term for this and for that. So I don't know. That's exciting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you think that like it's going to be a new startup that sits on top of these data warehouses, or is it going to be the companies like Snowflake or even the visualization companies that build this AI? They've got to be thinking about this stuff, right?
Yeah, that's a
So
really interesting question. Like Census, for example, they're trying to like pitch this like unified data layer idea where they sit on top of the warehouse and they
yeah.
have like a segment type of builder that no code allows you to just have a UI and interact with what is in your data warehouse. Like marketers can quickly build segments that, would take like hours to finish loading in Marketo, looking at
Yeah.
like loading screens, but you can bring in like GPT columns and enrich that data. So they're crossing into like what Clay is doing and like a
Interesting.
separate side of things. So anyways, that whole area is really interesting.
And then do any of them do data normalization and hygiene? And and if they don't, I feel like that's like big, could be a whole like prediction in itself of like because AI is so important and top of mind for everyone, I think we're going to see huge increases in companies that just specialize in fixing people's data, whether it's consultancies or, there's a handful of um what's it called? Data hygiene companies like Ringlead. I'm forgetting now because I haven't been doing it very often. Like Ringlead, I think Open Prize. I think focuses on you know like I'm those companies like if any of them are publicly traded, their stock should be going like skyrocketing, right? Or I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing something.
Yeah, there's like a lot of overlap with tools that are calling themselves like enrichment focused versus even like transforming data. Like DBT has a
Yeah,
really interesting opportunity here. Also, everyone is using DBT to transform data before it goes in the warehouse and
hmm,
after it gets out of the warehouse. Like no code AI powered data transformation. I think a lot of
yeah.
folks are going to be investing in that, like even building workflows without rejects, without like formula fields, and being able to push that data and activate it somewhere.